In this segment, I'm going to take a look at the selection tool and how you can use that to transform the shape and size of objects. So to get started, I'll just simply choose my ellipse tool and draw a few sort of circular looking shapes on the screen. And anyway, I don't need to have too many, just let's say 4 is good. So I just drew 4 embroidery objects, and you can see right away that when I select the rectangle selection tool that the last object that I had created automatically became selected. Now when I'm using the rectangular selection tool, I can just click on an object to select it. Another way to select an object would be to drag a box. So while I'm using this rectangular selection tool, I can click and drag to make a box, and whatever's fully surrounded by the box will become selected. So for example, if I drag a box that includes the top 2 circles but not the lower 2, I'll get just those 2 circles, and they're both selected. If I was to drag a box that covered the top 2 circles and the bottom right oval, but notice it doesn't cover the one on the lower left, and I let go, then those 3 circles become, or shapes become, selected, but not the one below. Now I can also add to this group, so I have 3 objects selected. If I hold my control key down and click on the last one, it will join the group. Now anytime you have something selected, if you want to unselect it or let go of it, you just simply click on your workspace off of the group. So if I click right here, it lets them all go. And so that's the rectangular selection tool. And if I fly this open, you see we also have the lasso selection tool. And the way the lasso selection tool works is you simply need to draw your selection box. So for example, I'll just click and drag and draw a shape around this particular oval. If I do it again, I could draw a box around, well, notice that because my selection doesn't quite cover this circle here, it's not included in that selection, so I need to make sure that I go around both of those to get them both. Or if you wanted to, you could go around, like, let's say these 3 to select just those 3 objects, and this one didn't get selected. So that's your lasso selection tool, and it can be helpful when you're trying to select objects that are sort of intermingled with a lot of objects. Now when you select an object, if I take a closer look at the object that we have selected, you'll see that you get a transformation box, and there's several things that we can do with this transformation box. I guess first of all would be easy to resize your object, and I've shown already how you can resize objects using the tool options, mathematically typing in a size or coordinates from the XY coordinates of where it's located, but you can do these things quite visually. So for example, if I wanted to change the size of this shape, I could go onto one of the corners. And now I'll just maybe take a close look at this. When I go over the corner, first of all, if I get just close to the edge, you'll notice that a little bit of a circle comes up with an arrow that's going in a circular fashion. That's going to be for doing rotations. If I move my mouse a little bit closer to the corner, it changes to be a sort of bidirectional arrow. And so when it's on the bidirectional arrow, I could use it to resize the shape. So I'm going to click and drag, click now, and drag, and you see it just resizes that shape to be smaller or larger. So that's changing it with the bidirectional arrows. Now if I wanted to rotate it, I would come to the corner again, but not go all the way to the corner for the bidirectional arrows, but staying a little bit outside of there where I get this sort of rotation handle. And now if I click and drag, you can see that I can rotate my shape to be, really any angle that I might want it to be. There's other types of transformations. Now, just on the topic of doing rotations, this here point in the center becomes your rotation center point. So if I click right now, I'm rotating around that point. If I move that point to, let's say, right here, and then choose my rotation, notice that it rotates around a new point that I had moved. So this point here becomes the center of your rotation when you're using the rotation handles. So you can resize it proportionally with these handles here, but if you go to the sides, so I guess there's the top and the bottom and the right and the left sides, when you look at those, again, you get two different things. So first of all, if I go right to the center, I'm going to get the bidirectional arrows again, and if I click now and drag, you can see that I'm resizing it, but I'm also changing its proportions. I'm basically stretching it or squishing it, and so when I let go, that gets adjusted. Now, if you notice, when I come to the side, as I get close to it, I also get this sort of peculiar looking arrow, and this is for doing a slant. And I guess it's not exactly the right kind of object to use for slant. Well, sure it is, but I mean, if you could imagine if it was lettering and you wanted to add some italics to the lettering by using this option of slanting. So this is on all the side handles we can stretch. On all the corner handles we can resize. So corner handles keep the proportions. The center handles will stretch or squish. And the corner handles also have the rotation option, and the side handles have the sort of slant or italics option. So those are the different kinds of transformations that you can make using the transformation tool, and that's how you can use the transformation tool to make selections and select multiple objects or just one individual object. Before I move on from the transformation tool and selection tool, I guess I could show one more thing, and that's just simply that you can also move the location of any object. So once it's selected, and remember, I just have to click on an object to select it. I'll move my screen over here. When it's selected and I mouse towards it, as soon as I get this multi-directional arrow as I have right now, I can click and drag to change the location of that object. So that's another, I guess, level. And again, if I just go over the middle, I get the same multi-directional arrows. So that's just where you can change the location of the object while it's selected. And you can do all of these transformations, not only just individually for one object, but for multiple objects at a time. So again, we've got our Lasso Selection tool. So we'll do a little lasso and select these two objects. And then just to show that I can resize the two objects, or stretch the two objects, or I guess I could slant those two objects. So you can see that the transformation tool works not only on an individual object, but on a group of objects as well. So for example, if I was to drag a box, I'm on the Lasso Selection tool, draw a box to select multiple of these, and then choose to resize them or even rotate them, let's say, around a specific rotation point. So that's just a bit of a demonstration about using the selection tool to change the location of objects and change the size and the shape of your objects. Okay, so now I'll move on and talk a little bit more about some of the other tools on the digitizing and editing toolbar.